Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Politdigm Podcast. My name is Red, and I'm joined by my co-host Alpha.
because there is no one else to join you.
True. And today is the 12th of December, 2023, and today is the day before my birthday. As I said last week's episode, tomorrow is my birthday. The day that the episode is coming out. So if you are watching this on the day that the episode comes out, remember that it's my birthday. In other news, I wrote an article this week. To be honest, was not my best article, but it was honestly kind of running out of, not running out of ideas, but I definitely was kind of, I'm tired. I need vacation, so, kind of lower creativity these days. But still, I came up with a cool topic, which I think we'll have some fun talking about. However, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to support us over at Patreon. And if you support us over on Patreon and join our public Discord server, which anybody can join, you'll get access to a little part of our Discord where you can submit questions for our podcast Q&A, which we do at the end of each episode. And with that being said, let's get into the article
Yes.
itself. So this week I chose to talk about voting. I chose this article because
No ideas, head empty.
no, it wasn't just any ideas. I was kind of just thinking about like what is something that I have been thinking about more often than usual. And I decided to choose voting because next year I am going to vote for the first time in my life, twice in 1 year, which is fun. And so, I was kind of just thinking about that. I was kind of like, all right, that's a big responsibility. Like, I'm going to, have to vote. So I need to start choosing who I'm going to vote for. And that kind of has been a bit of an interesting situation where I've been doing a lot of research and kind of trying to think about who I'm going to vote for. And that started bringing up a lot of like self conflict within myself. And that motivated me to write this article because I wanted to kind of talk about it, essentially just be able to kind of put the ideas out there, like what I'm feeling. And I know that there's surely other people that feel it out there. And just talk a little bit about voting, about the importance of voting, and then kind of getting to voting in the world and how it is. And at the end, I had a bit of a funny conclusion, which I'll talk about here. So in the beginning, I started talking about the importance of voting. Of course, voting is important. Of course, a lot of people say that it is, but don't
They don't
exactly
say.
exactly explain why. And a lot of people, knowing that it's important, don't really care. The reason why it truly is so important is because most countries, most likely if you are watching this, you are in one of those countries. We live under a democracy, and importantly, and most importantly, under a hierarchical. How the fuck is the word? Shit. How do you say it? A
Uh,
hierarchy. A hierarchy.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but
Hierarchical democracy, or a democracy with an
hierarchy.
hierarchy. Which means that there is an elected leader, right? Or elected leaders, people that we choose to govern us. In a if you have a democracy where there's no hierarchy, then you would have, it would be basically just more people, like you're just basically everybody would have the vote, and there would be no real like government or anything. But that's communism.
Secret the Lip don't want you to know.
That's but that's basically communism. So I digress.
Silent.
So when you live in a democracy where you have to elect leaders, of course, the one of the most powerful tools you have as a citizen is vote. Of course, that is not the only power you have. In a lot of countries, you have the power to strike. You have the power, for unions. These are other powers you have. But the one that is the forefront, the one that is something that you don't even have to. The only thing what you have to do is leave your house once every couple of years is to vote. That is the easiest and most powerful tool you have. Unless you want to use a gun, but let's not get into that right now. That's the American way. Uh, we do not
God
fuck with
bless America.
not fuck with the American way in these streets. So of course that is the most powerful way, where you get to choose, or hypothetically speaking, you get to choose your leaders. Of course, there is kind of this idea, which is something that I don't really like, which is like, oh, if I don't know who to vote for, it's like best to not vote. And to a degree, that's true. Like if you don't know who to vote for, it's better than just not cast a vote rather than just be like, all right, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, here's some random fucking shit.
There's some fuck here for the throne. I don't know.
Or or voting for someone which you think is best, but not really knowing exactly what you are voting for, which is something that is the worst possible thing you could fucking do is vote for somebody without actually knowing who you're voting for, which is most people, unfortunately. It is the only way that, as we talked about in the last two. Holy shit! Sorry, I'm burping so much. Excuse me. It's the only way that basically, which is something. Sorry, which is something that we talked about in the last two episodes, which is how that it's through those ways that right wing parties can get so much traction is because who is voting for you has no fucking clue what they're doing. They don't know. Like they don't know the basics of politics. They don't know the basics of what the hell is going on. And so they'll just vote for whoever has made the best propaganda or the propaganda that fits the best. And often that'll, kind of put you through a situation where you'll vote for somebody that actually has no good intentions and basically has manipulated you into thinking,
Argentina.
what?
Argentina.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good example. And then of course there's always those parties which I found out there was like a party in the Netherlands which was like it got 700 votes, which is literally a party that promised to do nothing. That was their whole thing. They were like, yeah,
We
we're
promise to not change a single thing.
no, they promised to do nothing. They didn't promise to change a single thing. They promised to do nothing, as in
Yeah, we
like
promise not to change anything. Just keep it as is.
no. You don't understand, Alpha. They're literally saying that they would if they won the vote, they would literally just not work. They
Ah,
wouldn't. They wouldn't. It's not they wouldn't change anything. They literally would do nothing. They wouldn't. Neither would they change it or make it worse or make it. They would literally just leave. They would just be like, "I'd goodbye," and then fuck off.
mood.
And I was like, right, that's how you. I mean, I if that would happen, I don't even know what would happen afterwards. I don't know, just like anarchy. I don't know. Would have been a fun reality show to watch.
Would have been a
But yeah, voting is something that's very important, and you need to be conscious of what you're doing. Of course, before voting, which is something that I've personally have been doing, is you need to research. You need to research what the hell is going on. You need to learn about the different parties in your country. You need to learn which, what are their values, what are their morals, what do they believe, are they fighting for, what is their economical like logic or ideology. And of course, to know what you can read all of those terms in a website, but if you don't know how any of those things work, you'll still be, where you started.
cool.
So it is also very important to know at least the basics, and I really holy shit, truly mean the basics of what politics means. Because no matter how much you want, and no matter how much you lie to yourself and be like, oh, life isn't all about politics, or you can live a life without politics affecting you, you are dumb. I am sorry, but politics is fundamental for everybody. It is everywhere and it affects you every fucking day. So no matter how much you try, as much as you try to run away from it, it is going to bite you in the ass and it's going to get you.
Run from it.
So
Face it. I'm sorry.
so no matter how much you want, you need to learn about these things because at some point it is going to affect you, no matter how much you want it or you don't want it. So not having to at least understand the basics of okay, what does it mean to be left or what does it mean to be right? And to some this might be seem very trivial. Like to me, like I know a lot about politics. Therefore, to me this is pretty fucking basic. However, once in a while you have these reality checks where like, holy shit, maybe I know a lot more than I think I do. Where somebody will come up to you and be like, oh yeah, communism is a centrist ideology. I'm like, what? How the fuck is that? How even? And they're like, wait, is that not how it works? I'm like, no, not even close. You're completely wrong. If communism is in the center, then what the fuck is on the left?
You
Like,
get an A for trying and failing.
so it is important to to keep in mind that what exactly is like how does that work. Then of course there's the economic side, which to some people, of course, there's always the policies, right? There's always the social policies, there's always that, but then there's also the economic side, which you might like fundamentally you could ignore like the social aspect of it, of like politics, and just focus on the economic part of politics. Both are equally important, and I don't suggest you ignore either, because I mean that's kind of what like people do in the U.S., right? Like they completely ignore the economic side. They don't, because like to them they're liberals, right? They focus on a liberal and neoliberal economic system. So to them that is what the status quo is. It is capitalism. So they only really focus on the social aspect. Like what is the differences between the social aspect or the social ideology of the Democrats and the social ideology of the Republicans? Which is stupid because like that's like I mean yeah, of course social problems are very like valid problems, and they are usually linked interlinked with the economic side, but like there's bigger problems. Like your entire country is like fucked beyond recognition when it comes to economics, and yet you're worried about like trans people being in the bathroom that you don't like, and you're like insanely obsessed with it.
Or having to wear masks.
And when I'm saying this, I'm not saying, oh yeah, like social issues, like for example, regarding the queer community doesn't matter. They do. And in fact, I talk about it a lot more than people probably want to listen to. What I'm trying to say is that whilst those are very important things, like
They are not the end all be all.
fundamentally, if you do get equal rights for the entire queer community, you're not going to change that there's like an economic like bias, and there's like an entire like predatory system that makes it so that no matter which minority you are, no matter how many rights you have, you're not going to get equal pay. You're not going to there's this whole other thing. Like to get to the social parts, we first need to focus on the other aspects. That's what I'm trying to say. If you have an entire like social security system that's basically based off out of like yeah, like we'll save you if you have already money, which at that point is like why even have this system in place if the only people that get to essentially get its help is if you already have money, so you don't need its help. So that's basically the US. Money is it's like you need money for everything. There's nothing that you can do without money. You need to have money everywhere in every single situation, and you'll get nothing for free. And so when you have all those things in mind, like to a certain degree, it starts becoming trivial. Of like, yeah, sure, like I might be able to, I might be able to get gender affirming care, but like, can I pay for it? No, like so fuck. Like, what the fuck does that matter? Yeah, sure, you might have access to gender affirming care now in Florida, but like, can you pay for it? No, because the government still refuses to give basic healthcare to people. So I digress. Back to what I was saying. You need to have a fundamental understanding of how economics works. For example, I think it was 2 weeks ago, or was it last week, that I gave that example about my friend Alpha. Do you remember?
I don't even know which example you're talking about, but
About the one where I said like, would you rather that like the government give more money to
yeah, that
the
was last week.
all right, so that was like a good example. Like that is something you need to fundamentally understand, right? Like it is through the economic illiteracy that people constantly fall for illiberal ideas. That is the only way I can put it, and to me, that is how it works. Like you can only fall for liberalism if you are uneducated about it. Because if you look at the world, if you look at the way that socially it is, if you look economically, there's no fucking way that you can look at liberalism and be, yeah, this works. There's no fucking way. And so it is also through those ways where people will believe and go down the myth of trickle-down economics. They think, all right, so if my company is making more money, therefore I can make more money, which is not. It's not true. It's not true unless you are the boss of that company, which most likely you are not. Statistically speaking, you are not. You're getting fucked, because even if you are in a country like Portugal, where the large the most companies are small companies, that only have a couple of workers, that are owned by the same person that basically works there, right? Like the owner is the only worker, and other companies like that. Even then, like at that point, like the government is not going to benefit you if you are under a liberal system, because it is only going to benefit those which are already rich. That is what capitalism does: is make the rich richer and the poor poorer. I never know how to say that correctly, but I think I got it. So that is something you need to take into account is exactly economically what does this mean? Like what am I getting into if economically there's a lot of social issues, right? If there's a lot of social issues that are growing from economical issues, right? Like there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of healthcare issues, there's a lot of help me out, Alpha.
I kind of spaced out. Sorry.
Like there's a lot of, for example, just issues that are like happening around us that are social issues, but that were born from an economic system that does not benefit people, right? When generally in a country you have a shit ton of economic problems that are all created because we live because you live in a country that has a capitalist system. How do you expect those social issues to go away by voting for a party that doesn't
It doesn't,
believe in an economic system that benefits the social sector?
or it doesn't even address them. Like, just says, oh, social issues, economic issues. Nah, nah, nah. What we got is them immigrants ruining the place.
Like all we have is people that don't work, people that are lazy, people that don't deserve anything. And so when you start getting to that point, it is very hard to listen to a person, which I'm basing this part of the episode on a conversation I've had at IRL, which was a friend of mine, which said that in the next elections in Portugal that he was going to vote for the far right party. I looked at him and I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like you literally just said to me that there's a shit ton of social issues in Portugal right now. There's so many issues that's going on. We have people that are people are really fucking poor. There's like our health system is like constantly on a verge of exploding everywhere. So how can you look at all those things and then look it into my face and say, yes, I want to vote for the party that wants to legalize corruption, believes in the total like extermination of fucking any immigrant that puts a foot down on this fucking on our soil, and then expect that party to be the one that's going to resolve the social issues? Are you fucking kidding me? They're going to make more social issues.
Yeah. Like,
They're-
you saw my reaction when I was talking to you next to your friend group, and one of your friends just turns up and says, "Yeah, there's a lot of bad shit about that far right party, but there's one thing that you can't deny. It's the fact that they're going to fix our social economic crisis." And my reaction
yeah, it's
was,
this the same guy.
well,
I was talking about the same guy.
it was quite literally just grabbing him by the shoulders and
And
say,
be
"Okay,
like,
listen."
you dumb fuck.
Yeah, yeah. I started basically screaming at the top of my lungs.
After 500 years, what will you have? Sorry. Uh,
What?
I don't know. I was trying to quote Omni Man for some reason.
What the fuck? That is not a good quote.
I know, but it's like I don't know, just the idea of like after 500 years, what will money matter? Like fucking dumbass. So yeah, like there's a clear like this disconnect of like this idea of like, oh yeah, the party that because that's the thing is like, which is something that really does confuse the shit out of me, and honestly, I cannot understand how, because right wing parties focus primarily, or typically, not so much recently, are primarily focused on we must make our country richer. That is basically like there is. If you want to boil it down, that's their whole
It's not
propaganda.
even that's being generous. It's more like we want to make our rich people richer.
No, I'm not even like being specific. I'm just being like what they say. Like I'm not saying what they're doing.
Yeah,
I'm saying like
amassing wealth on the top 1% of
what
the
they what
population.
like typically in more like if you're gonna say like more center right parties. I'm not even going into fascism at this point. I'm talking about like those like liberals, right? Like pure liberals are like their whole idea is
Democracy.
we want to make our country richer so that we can all be richer. That is their whole thing, right? Like no matter how much it's not true or no matter how much you don't agree, that is what they say, right? That's their
Core
whole
belief.
thing. Then on the left, you have we want to solve the social issues. We want to make sure that everybody has the right to for healthcare, for education.
And the
We want to
distribution
end
of wealth.
starvation. We want to end racism. We want to end sexism. They want to end homophobia. They want to end transphobia. Like that is their whole focus is the social aspect, right? They want to focus on we want to make people happy. We want to make sure that you can be yourself and that you don't have to worry about having money.
Yeah, it's like one side just goes, we want to we want to make more money, and the other side goes, we want people to be happy.
No, because like the two differences, which is like you can think about this as like a game, right? Like you have two options, right? You have, oh, I have to, like if you're in the middle, right? Like I have a society, like I live in a world where each month I have to spend $1,000, let's say, right? But I only have $100. And then the solution of the right is, oh, you only have $100, but you want to spend 1,000, but you need to spend 1,000. Then we'll make sure that instead of making 100, you'll make 1,000, right? But then on
Yeah,
the left, their whole idea is, oh, you only have 100, then we'll make sure that you only have to spend 100
it's
each
not
month.
raising the profit margin, it's making so as to people's lives being able to be lived with with low profit, basically.
The whole concept of like modern being a leftist, right, is mostly based off of Marxism, right?
It's
Or at
mostly
least
based.
it's mostly
Period.
based. It's mostly based off of Marxism, and even like the most like unfaithful leftists, right? They still, focus
Go
on the
sinful
idea,
from this. I'm
focus
sorry.
on the concepts of benefiting the people, right, rather than the capital. And so, it is very important to keep in mind. I lost track of what I was going to say. God damn it.
People, capital, yada yada.
No, I was gonna say that no matter how you try to try to frame it, leftist ideology is trying to take away power from capital and is trying to make money less important. Of course, there's levels to it because communism is like fuck money, get rid of it, whilst the more socialist, like a more of like a yeah, I mean like I just say like a socialist country, sure. That is not dabbling into communism, because communism is socialism, but that's why I got confused. But if you're just focusing on a non-communist socialism, right, like this idea of like yes, there's still money, yes, there's still private ownership, yes, there's still some sort of capital, even though capital is now much more public. There's certain sectors of industry which are not privatized because that is not a good idea. And basically everything, the only things that are privatized are those which are considered luxuries, like things that you don't need to survive, things that are just
Or
like a car. You don't need a car to survive. If you have a free public transport,
yeah,
transportation, a car is but a luxury. It's something that you can use because you have more money. Like that is like a more like
I can already hear some diehard American going, "I need my car for my freedom, bitch."
it's like yeah, no, you don't. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. I love
Fuck
cars. I love cars so much,
freedom.
and yet I understand the concept that I do not need a car as long as I have. Because that's the issue. Like the reason why Americans say I need my car for freedom is because they have their public
Have you seen the road?
infrastructure is
It's just
ass,
highways. It's just
and
highways.
buses
It's
and trains are
terrifying.
non-existent. So like of course, like there's like I saw this awful map, which is that out of all the states, there's only one state where using public transport is more common than using a car. And guess
Which
which one it is? New
Pennsylvania?
York.
Fuck.
No shit, it's New York because you have, famously you have the trains, the subway system, the
Bitch, have
buses.
you seen New
People
York?
use bikes. Like no, using a car in New York is a hellhole. Of course, people would rather use anything else, and of course, and it's not that they would rather use anything else. It's because New York is the only state, is the only city in the entire U.S. that actually has a semi decent public transport
Distribution
infrastructure.
network. Yeah.
All the other ones are ass. Like like you can't take like it takes you, I don't know, days, possibly like it takes you weeks to get from LA to New York with public transports. While the same distance in Europe would maybe take you less than a day, a couple of
You
hours
can
if you want
make
to do it in
an
public transport.
entire country on one train trip.
Yeah, like you can go from Lisbon to Moscow in maybe what, three train rides in a couple of hours.
Give me a second. Lisbon to
Because like
Moscow.
like you need at least two, because like you can't,
Yeah,
because
it's
like you need
three
one from
days and
Lisbon.
two train rides.
Like you need Lisbon, you need to like take one from Lisbon to like somewhere in Spain, and then from Spain you can basically get access to the rest of Europe. Because Portugal also has a shit railroad
System.
infrastructure.
I
Because
mean, it's not that it's shit; it's that it's old.
yeah, and different, because like our, I didn't know this until very recently, but I guess it makes
Correct.
sense. Like our the train tracks are not all the same everywhere, and ours
Yeah,
are different. I was like, what the fuck? Like this is why I believe in standardized systems. This is my fucking god damn
ever
it.
heard of the metric?
It's like God, yeah, fucking Americans and the metric system. But yeah, like what were we talking about? Talking about but yeah, like social issues
Public
and
transportation.
like
Yeah,
fundamentally, you need to understand that like the left has this idea of giving less importance to capital and money, right?
it's not even that. It's basically if you see leftism and rightism as I'm sorry, brain fart in their historical context, leftism came up as an opposition to the ideas
Yeah.
of the monarchy, meaning the monarchy is the absolute concentration of power on one individual. What the fuck do you think the opposition is?
Yeah, it's the total power of from everyone. Like everybody owns everything. It's the
Also,
exact
there is
opposite.
one thing that I just tickles me funny, which is seeing Americans, fucking Americans, Mister. I fought a war against nature and native tribes in order to have my fucking independence, sucking dicks of monarchies.
Oh yeah, and wanting to be a monarchy so bad. Because like let's be real, like the US wants to be a monarchy. They don't know it, but they want to. I mean
Yeah, like
they
when
treat
Elizabeth
their
died, holy shit.
let's look back at like during like monarchy of like of a fucking France, right? Well, like King Louis, right? Like the was it like
Mhm.
the king, fuck, what is his title? Like the Sun King or whatever the fuck they call him, or he called
Yes.
himself. Like those kings were seen as gods. Like they were seen as like
They were
this.
quite literally. That's why the right of birth was
Yeah,
allowed. It's the this idea that
they're
they were
seen as
chosen
God on
by
earth.
God,
They were seen as God on earth, right? They were seen as like this mythical
the
being.
absolute authority.
And then look at modern day conservatives, modern day little piggies, talking
Little,
about Trump. And they talk about Trump in the exact same fucking way that back in the day people used to talk about kings. In the exact same way. They see him as like this figure sent by God. They see him as God on earth. They see him as like this divine figure which is going to save them and is going to it's exactly the same bullshit. And you can see this. I don't know. Remember, have you ever seen that clip of like this guy who has like this massive shirt, which is like says like a bunch of like presidential terms in the U.S. like 20, like 16 to 20, then 20 to 24, 24 to 28. 28 to 32, like they have like all the different terms, and they have like the names of each, like of what they think will be the different presidents, right? And it's like Trump, Ivanka Trump, Trump Jr. Like it's like just the entire family.
Jesus Christ.
It's like this motherfucker wants to turn presidential like elections into a monarchy, right? Like this idea that it's going to be like generation after generation that the U.S. is just going to elect like a bunch of different members from the Trump family. It's like, boy, that is not like you're not. That is not a democracy. That is not a republic. You Republican dumbass. That is that is a monarchy. You are a monarch. Like what the hell are you doing? I'm not a monarch. You're a monarchist. Like boy, like you are dumb. Like what the
And
hell?
also, Americans really like to yap about the lack of freedom in China, Korea, and Russia, which absolutely justifiably, especially when it comes to the fucking dictatorships that they live in, which
Yeah,
evolve always rigged elections, meaning there is no re-election, meaning it's basically a monarchy without the whole God thing.
yeah.
Wait, that's a lie.
I mean, yeah, true. Just not in the
It's
same way.
so contradictory. It's so stupid. It makes my blood boil.
It's
Like
like
the amount of problems that exist in history only because some people can't read a fucking book.
I can't stop looking at their own dicks and playing with
They
them
can't
instead
stop
of
believing.
yeah,
They're
stop.
sinking into that feeling.
Cringe. But yeah, like there's a severe amount of like dumbassery around around this
Yeah,
shit.
don't say.
So that's what I'm
Once
saying.
again, those examples of people just running into conservative crowds and giving off communist ideologies, and they start agreeing because they don't know Jack.
Because like fundamentally, that's what I was saying last episode. Fundamentally, all of us have some sort of of what's the word? What's the word? Like
Then letters, Jacob. What do you mean?
compassion. I mean, compassion works too. Like compassion, they have
Empathy.
empathy, all those things for other people. So when leftist ideologies, which are
That's a lie. The
fundamentally
only thing I feel for other people is hatred.
like when leftist ideologies are based off of this idea of you need to have empathy for those around you, and when regardless of where you want or not, most people do, unless you are a sociopath or a psychopath or
Or do you
both.
consider people people?
Unless you have those, which to be fair, most people do have empathy for each other. No matter how much of a right wing fucker you are, most people do have empathy for
Okay, I
others
gotta
around you.
I gotta disagree with that. I do agree that most people have empathy, but it's towards those that are included in their circle. Their
Yeah,
circle can be anything.
I,
Can be their family, can be their social background, can be the nation, at least most of it. Like,
what I'm
for
trying to
example,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
uh, you know that I watched for the first time Blade Runner,
Yep.
both of them. And one of the things that I thought was funny is this idea that the basically the fake humans, air quotes, were treated the same way that a slave would be treated in terms where slavery was, you know, a thing. They even had slangs, which was basically the N word for these artificial humans, and they weren't deemed alive. That was the whole point. Like these weren't living, breathing human beings. But whenever you look elsewhere, you don't see any type of racial problems because they all just manage to focus on one common enemy.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's just equal hatred. People will be happy as long as they have someone to hate.
The most common trope in a cyberpunk or like a dystopian capitalist storyline is exactly what Alpha just described. Is the idea, for example, if you I mean, Cyberpunk, the game itself is not a good example of this, but if you watch, for example, Blade Runner or watch the newer film The Creator, there are very similar films in the idea of when you look around, you'll notice that racism is not really present, neither is sexism. There isn't really a difference between genders. There is no real like queerness, and and just sexual acceptance is like something that is not like there's no real homophobia. Like you don't see like there like you see that people are much more accepting of the way that they love each other, and that there's and in fact one thing that is very common in these dystopias is that the idea of sexual taboo is kind of gone. Like there is sexual ads everywhere, there's sexual content everywhere.
Which
like
is
the,
good and bad.
there's no more idea of like this, like, oh, we cannot talk about a sex thing. So like now we live in a society where people are much more inclusive when it comes to different sexualities or different gender identities. But then you always, like, for example, in Blade Runner, like Alpha said, you have the replicants, which are essentially clones, right? They're essentially clones which are not deemed real, and like the entirety of society has turned on them when there's absolutely no reason to turn on them. We created them; they are built by in our image, and they are as alive as we are. That's it. But I'm like that. I care about the replicants. But most people don't have that
I care
opinion. In
about her
fact,
big
the
titties.
entire concept of a Blade Runner, what a Blade Runner is, a Blade Runner in the Blade Runner universe is a job, is an occupation, which is essentially a bounty hunter for these replicants, for these clones. They go around and eliminate them, like they have no life or loved ones. And in fact,
Yeah,
spoiler alert,
like
the
in my
entire
plural
lore, the
slave
the
hunters.
entire plot of the first movie is that a Blade Runner, spoiler alert, falls in love with a replicant and realizes that, oh shit, maybe they are people, because they are at the end of the day.
Hot take: leaving humans that can feel emotion are actual people.
And then on the other side, the film The Creator, which is also takes place in a, I wouldn't say it's not as much as a dystopia in this case, but it's more of like a futuristic setting where we have robots, right? We have like these robots, which some are not very human looking, but some are extremely human looking. And after there was a bug, like a glitch in a program, which detonated, again, spoiler alert, detonated an entire fucking bomb.
Literally in the fucking trailers. Come on,
Yeah,
that's no spoiler.
like detonated a bomb in LA, the entirety of the US was like, oh yeah, there was a glitch in the system. There must be the problem of AI. Then we must outlaw AI, and now we're gonna cleanse the entire world of robots and AI because they are the ones at fault. And then by the end of the film, you realize like robots have loved ones, they have families. Like we see like robots crying over the death of others, and we see humans cry over the death of robots, and we kind of start realizing, oh, these are people, these are things that have feelings, they love each other, they love others. And
Nah, but fuck them. Humanity go brr.
of course, like these movies are always allegories for racism, right? About allegories of treating those which are different with in an unhuman way. And in fact, it's weirdly enough, there's a lot of my favorite movies are about social injustices and this idea of there being some sort of like savior or trying to, like save humanity from like a problem that we created. Minus one. One is just about time travel. But generally speaking, like there's a reason why like people like that are so passionate about this shit, of course, are going to have favorite films that reflect it. But yeah, of course, like there's we completely went away from the topic of the article. Holy shit! But
Yeah.
it is, yeah, like understanding like these fundamental problems that we face, like racism, or understanding how you don't have to understand how economics works at a academic level, but you need to understand fundamentally how money is moved, right? Like that is something that is basic, something that you're going to need as an adult anyways. And if you don't have it, that's why there's so many people in debt anyways. Like, yeah, the system doesn't help, but like at least learn how to fucking play the game of the system, no matter how hard it is. Because if you don't, you're fucked. Like you're like that is the only way. Like there's two options. If you don't want to play a game in a system, either you revolt and I don't know, start a
Or
revolution, or
reform.
you play along for as long as you need
Either you change the system or you get pegged.
by the system. Like there's no real other option. Unless you're a moderate, then there's always a
The
middle
fence
option.
sitting option. I don't feel comfortable with saying.
So that is something that's important because when you're voting, when you're exercising your voting rights, you are fundamentally choosing the future of your country, choosing the future of possible other countries, which by like what you mean, but like if you, for example, if you're voting in the US, you are definitely choosing the future of other countries. Like let's get that straight because you have like countries like the US, Russia, China, other countries like that have a lot of fucking control over other countries. Like let's keep that in mind. So you are when you're voting, you're not voting for yourself. You're voting for your entire everybody around you, even those who are not even in your country. So it is, again, I cannot say this enough. Voting is very fucking important, and please vote and educate yourself on who you're voting for. And now I want to get into one of the issues which you will face, which I personally face, and a lot of people do, which is, all right, that's cool, I've educated myself, but how do I choose to vote on a party on which I don't agree with? And I might be asking, so after all this conversation, what does that mean? Like, what the hell? You're gonna educate yourself and then vote on a party you don't believe in? And I want to keep you something in mind. Everybody's different. We all have slightly different opinions. Me and Alpha, as no matter how much our political ideologies are alike, there are some little nitpicky things which might not be very different, but in a micro universe, right? If it was just me and him, they're very different, right? It's just in the grand scheme of things, there might not be a big difference, but they're still different. So when you take into account that maybe a country has 10, 15 political parties, there's no way that those 10 or 15 political parties are going to perfectly represent every single citizen of that country. It can't. It's just impossible. There's always going to be some people that will not be able to look at any of those parties and be like, I agree with one of these parties 100%. It is just impossible. It's statistically improbable that will happen. And so I myself, and I'm going to speak from my perspective, is that, for example, now that I'm looking into the different political parties in Portugal and I'm doing research on it, I'm finding it very hard to choose on which to vote for because I don't agree 100% with either of them. And for somebody that has such a strong political opinions like I do, that is a hard choice to do because I'm going to have to compromise. I'm going to have to vote for a party on which I don't 100% agree on, which has some policies that I'm against. And that is not an easy thing to do because it feels like I'm betraying my own opinions, my own ideology. And that is something that is not easy to do. I've had this conversation with Alpha. For example, one of the more likely candidates, or like one of the parties that I'm most likely going to vote for, has a really shit policy when it comes to the EU. And for a person who 2 weeks ago made an entire article, with the biggest article Politdigm has ever launched, about how much I love the EU and how I want a better EU, it is very hard for me to vote for a party that fundamentally does not like being part of the EU. But I might have to, because other than that, I don't disagree with.
Basically, it's the difference between stubbing your toe and getting shot.
Yeah, so it is something that it's not easy to do because there's always going to be little things that certain parties you're not going to agree with, and it's not easy to do. Like there's going to be either, for example, you might have something that's possible. Like you might have this amazing party with these amazing values, but then it is led by a guy that's just has a horrible history of I don't know, saying racial slurs or some shit. Then it's, even though the party might have amazing ideas, it is very hard for you to vote for that party because you're fundamentally supporting that one figure which you hate because they are dumb or whatever. So it's not easy, and it becomes even harder when, for example, taking it back to the U.S. For example, in the U.S., that is even harder because the U.S. works in a two-party system, or a duopoly, a political duopoly, where there is two parties which fundamentally have power over the country. Are there other parties? Yes. Technically speaking, there are other political parties in the U.S., but they are so much weaker and to a degree which you cannot even comprehend. Like the other parties have millions of votes, and the others might not even have 1 million votes. So they're much smaller parties. Therefore, voting for one of those other parties is basically pointless. Why would you? It's basically casting a blank vote at that point. And so voting in the U.S. is a game of, it's a much larger game of compromise than voting in other countries with other democratic countries. I mean, because if you vote in Russia, it doesn't really matter anyways, because we all know who's going to win. In fact, next year there's going to be Russian elections, and I'm very curious and I'm very eager to find out who's going to win because the possibilities are endless. There's so many people who can win. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But basically what I'm trying to say is that, for example, in the US, the game, the compromise game, is massive because let's take this into account. First of all, the US has the Democrats and the Republicans. In the US itself, it is the entire idea is that the Republicans are right wing, the Democrats are left wing. I have to say one thing. There are definitely politicians who are leftists who side with the Democrats or who are part of the Democratic Party. Or are the Democratic Party leftist? No. Can some Democrats be leftist? Yeah, They can. In fact, like, I mean, Bernie Sanders is not technically a leftist. He's a social democrat, which means that he's kind of on the in the center. He's not a centrist, but he's, like, social Democrats are basically this idea of, like, yeah, we want to have a um, like, we want to have, like, the basic, like, everything that we talked about, like healthcare, education, and all this stuff, like, that leftists want to nationalize. I want to make a public, thing, not, be able to generate wealth out of it, so people can have them for free. That is going to be free, just like a leftist ideology. But then the rest is going to be in a heavily capitalist system, right? So it's kind of like this in between, like this compromise between socialist ideas and capitalist ideas, which in the US, I can see why people would vote for that, because it is definitely better than the system they have right now. In fact, Sweden and all those Scandinavian countries, which we all know as being like these beacons of
Leftism.
of leftism, are technically speaking not leftists. They're not, because, like, technically speaking, being a social democrat, you're still in the right wing spectrum of things, although you are very close to being a leftist. Yes, that is absolutely true. In fact, there are technically speaking, there are social democrats which can be so social that do fall into leftism. Uh, but it's technically speaking, you are still most of them are still on the right. So that is something to keep in mind. Of course, there are still politicians in the democratic system, in the Democratic Party, which are definitely leftist. I am trying to think of one right now, but I know they exist.
My head is empty.
I know of, I'm thinking of several in my mind right now. The thing is that I don't know their names. Like, I've heard of them. I keep hearing them. The thing is, like, I'm shit at remembering names. But I know they exist. Trust me. All right, they exist.
Do not fact check me.
No,
Quote me your source. I made it the fuck up.
no, you can fact check me on this, definitely, because I know
I
they exist.
love that clip. That clip is so good.
So
Nice argument. Why didn't you back it up with a source? The source is that I made it the fuck up.
So keeping in mind what I said, it is very important to remember that when you're voting in the U.S., you are voting for a right-wing party. No matter how much you want it, you are voting for a right-wing party, and it's something to keep in mind. Which is, whilst in the Republican Party, the spectrum of people in that party range from crazy conservative liberals to neo-fascist Nazis. Um, in the Democrats, you have slightly less conservative liberals to sort of socialists who or progressive. Like, that is kind of what you're working with. Of course, when you keep that in mind, when you have a country that is so conservative and so right wing, no shit that generally, when it comes to a democratic president winning, it is almost never a very progressive one. It's always one that is very right leaning, like Biden. Biden is a right wing politician. There's no fucking way that he's a leftist. If you think he's a leftist, you know nothing about politics. I am sorry, but he is not a fucking leftist. There's no way in hell he's a leftist. So when you keep that in mind, when you keep in mind that probably in the next elections of the US next year, you're going to have to vote between Joe Biden, a senile right-wing politician, or Donald Trump, a slightly less senile yet insanely not egotist, a narcissistic dumbass of a right-wing politician. What choice do you have? None, almost. And it truly comes down to a lesser of two evils when you are voting. Plus, the voting system, the democratic system in the U.S. is an abomination. There's almost barely any, democracy in the U.S. Like you have lobbies, you have everything. So basically, like, saying that the U.S. is democratic is laughable. It is barely not a democracy, and so it's very hard that's why I said that it's a big compromise game, because in the US you're going to compromise big time, because big time socialists, like people who are very leftist, are most likely going to have to vote for Biden, knowing that Biden has is a piece of shit with with a shit ideology, which they don't agree with at all. Yet it is much better than Trump. So keeping that in mind, you kind of start recognizing that, oh shit, like, yeah, voting is a very hard thing to do because you're going to constantly have to choose between people which you don't agree with. Some you agree with more, some you agree with less. And you're always going to, of course, vote for those which you agree with more. Unfortunately, those most likely are not going to be people that you agree with 100%. Maybe 90, maybe 95, but there's always going to be that little percentage of things that you simply do not agree with because that is normal. That is how people work. Of course, there is always those people, which I could never be. Some are like that, but there's always those people that are like fanatics or like really align themselves with a political party. As somebody who
We
is
got a
very,
lot of those for a specific party here in Portugal, actually, which is funny enough, the Communist Party.
yeah, I mean, you also have, holy shit, you have also the socialist democratic system, which also has a lot of people. I mean, I say every big party that's on the parliament has like diehard members. And personally, as a person who is like very, not in a liberal way, but in a in an artistic and funky way. I'm very like, yeah, I like doing things my way, and I like kind of just like not aligning myself with big groups of people. I just like I don't know, I'm kind of autistic, honestly. And so I find that idea of being like, yeah, I'm going to be part of this political group, and I'm going to be like a diehard defender of it. Kind of goofy. I don't know. I've never been able to see myself doing that. I know a lot of people do, but I can vote for a political party, but like being a member of it, not really my thing. Unless it's a political party that I created, there's no way in hell I could do that. In fact, of which now kind of coming into the conclusion of the article, which is that if you want an easy solution to voting, there isn't. You're not going to have a satisfying answer to that. There's no one concise formula that will guarantee that you'll vote for the best politician for you all the time. You're always going to have to do some sort of compromise.
And right now, I am going to compromise the length of this episode.
Hold on, shut up. I'm not finished my
Yeah, no,
fucking. I've not
stop.
finished the sentence, Alpha. I didn't finish the
Yes,
sentence.
you have.
No, I haven't.
I am so tired.
But I haven't. I literally haven't finished the conclusion. So please.
Oh God.
So keeping that in mind, unfortunately, the only easy solution, which I do not recommend for logistical reasons, the only, the best solution for when you have to vote and you can't find a political party that you agree with 100% is start your own. However, this is not a very sane and easy thing to do. If you want to do it, go ahead. Have fun. Do your thing. Unfortunately, for us mere mortals with financial, I don't know, love, I don't know how to put it, or have to care about money, can't do that. So that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, that's my conclusion is that the best way to vote for a party that you 100% believe in is make your own. However, I don't suggest that really. So keep that in mind. So yeah, now Alpha, now you can talk.
Okay, seeing as though this was one of our shortest blogs to date, I think it is also appropriate if we make one of our shortest episodes.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I don't see where else we can go with this. And it is late. I am tired. I have been in a voice call with Red for the past 2 hours.
Yeah, almost three. For those who don't know, I do creative writing. I like writing as like a writer, as in like
And I
movies
often have to
and
come
TV.
up with a
Goofy
solution
lore.
to Red's bullshit.
Yeah, because like I'm a writer, right? And I've been writing for years. And even though I'm only 19, I started writing the specific story that I'm writing way back when I was a child. Kind of like through a role play. This is the first time I'm saying this publicly, so I'm kind of nervous. And so I decided a couple of years back during the quarantines to write this down as like a an actual story, like something you can read on a piece of paper. And the issue is that when you are a child and you create plot points, they oftenly are confusing and are not following any sort of logic. And so the last 3 years have been I've spent basically fixing plot holes. That's been the last 3 years of me. I've not been writing stories. I've been fixing plot holes and trying to make any sort of sense of a lore that I once created, which was
And as a consequence, so have I.
yeah. So a consequence, I bring all my friends into it. And so when I today I arrived earlier at home from school, and I was like, all right, so let's get into VC. Let's record the episode, but I also want to do this thing. And then we went on like a hour and a half conversation where I was basically like, like me and Alpha were debating like what a possible fix for a certain plot hole was, so that I could so that I could keep writing because I had a plot
Don't
hole and I
worry.
was like, oh
Don't
shit.
worry, everyone. I won.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a debate that anybody wins. The winner, the true winner of the debate was lore itself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, as I was saying, as we said at the beginning of the episode, we do have a Patreon. And
yeah,
if you subscribe to our Patreon, you are not only helping us by supporting us financially, but you are also given access to the Q&A portion of the Discord. Unfortunately, we do not have a question today, just
yeah,
like most days.
and
Nevertheless, our Discord is free and open to those that want to join.
yeah,
Just the Q&A section is closed off to Patreon supporters.
some other sections which are also fun, which you should definitely check out. If you want to check out the Patreon, you'll be able to find out which those other sections are. However, you actually want to know something funny, because
No,
this is our whole thing in Politdigm, is that we are very transparent about the
I
things
know
we
that
do.
you fucked up with a Discord thingy.
No, that's not that. It's not that. So, like you said, like how you're supporting us financially, and I think that since we are so transparent and we talk about money and being such leftists, I think it's important to know where the money that you support us with is where it's going, right?
Please don't say what I think you're going to say.
I highly doubt I'm going to say what you're going to think, because I've never said this to you.
Okay, if I see that it's going in the direction that I think it's going, I'm going to
So
stop it.
a couple of weeks ago, for those who don't know, we are always looking for people to help us out. Like we're not going to be able to pay you a salary,
Oh, okay.
but
I'm
what's
so much more relieved.
the
I
fuck
thought
do
we
you
were going somewhere else entirely.
Alpha, we're on a podcast. That's some shit I would say jokingly, personally, not
No,
here.
not that either. I'll message you after.
All right, right. So we're always looking for people to help us. Like we're looking for people that can help us make like TikTok like edits of our podcast, or for shorts or Instagram. Also looking for people that can help us edit videos for our main channel, which we have not yet started making content for. And so I made a post about one of these positions, right? One of these helping positions that you can, be part of when it comes to helping Politdigm, and this on social media. And since we have a couple of months ago started having a single Patreon supporter, and thank you very much for your support. I decided, hey, something I've never done before in my life. I'm going to try to pay for a Instagram ad, right? Try to make the post an Instagram ad, because I wanted, try to get as much engagement for it as possible, because I wanted, I wanted to help grow Politdigm. I want to get people on board. So I was like, this feels like an important thing for me to advertise. And wouldn't you know that when the post went live at 5 p.m. Greenwich Meridian time, that I got a notification from Instagram saying that our ad was rejected because it went against their rules of discrimination. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Politdigm, the company that its entire thing is being against discrimination and helping and fighting for a better life for people, is getting flagged for discrimination. What in the actual fuck?
We do be trolling.
So
So yeah, everyone.
yeah, for those who are worried that we're gonna take the money from Patreon and leave, no, I'm trying to spend the
I
money
have
on growing
nowhere to
Politdigm,
go.
but I don't know what the fuck to do with it, because every time I seem to try to invest into Politdigm, it seems that nobody wants to take my fucking money. What the fuck is this shit? Like, god damn it!
There is nowhere to go. I am banned off all airports. I cannot leave.
Hi, in 1999, I committed
I am
atrocities.
hunted. Why do you think I live in Portugal? It's the only place where I'm not blacklisted.
Anyways, as I said before in the beginning of the episode, I hope to see happy birthday wishes in the comments. If I don't, I am going to repeat what I did in 1999 before I was born. And with that being said, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.
Wait, was next episode? Is it? Oh yeah, next episode is after. Wait, no, it's almost near Christmas.